Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Calvin, We the Species. Um, Michael and I have been kind of BSing for a long time. Actually, it's been an hour. Well, because I had to attack Michael on a bunch of different fronts. Of course, what we're here to talk about, the Realist Indie Film Club, something that is near and dear to me, and we're going to talk all about that. And the fact that I interviewed Michael a year ago for the Garden State Film Festival because he did this amazing. He's a documentarian. He's award-winning, ESPN documentaries. And you can kind of go over the specifics of that. Although I'm looking at my notes, Slick Nancy and the Telethon, award-winning all over the place. Last year he had a film, The Waiting Game, and I'm a basketball guy, and that I played basketball. Almost tried for the Bulls back in '76, and the waiting game was something I just never knew. We'll talk about that a bit, about the old ABA stuff. How amazing the ABA was, and how basketball today is. Michael will talk about that. So this is such a special, amazing interview, and I'm just so glad we found the time, Michael, to do this. Hugely important because there's a whole new directional change in viewing that's needed in supporting indie filmmakers, documentarians. This is all such important stuff. As I've interviewed 35 indie artists over the last few weeks at the Garden State Film Festival, I know how important this is in your journey and your mission. It's great, important stuff. So, uh, my official Johnny Carson monologue, although there were no jokes, is now over. So why don't you do a little background and then we'll jump into why we're here.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me back. It was a great interview last year as part of Garden State with the waiting game, and I could catch you up on what's been going on with that. But yeah, I've been making films for 30 years, and it is my passion, and I love it. And it's it's a it's an art form, unfortunately, that is an independent, um, is kind of in danger. And so I know there are a lot of people who really love independent film. Those are people who attend film festivals, who believe in art house theaters, and just know that independent storytelling is just very different from what is brought to you by these large streaming services. There's nothing wrong with what they're bringing you, but it's just very different, and it's safe over there. Here, we're going to ask, tougher questions. Here, you're going to meet more interesting, iconoclastic people in the independent world. You're going to be exposed to things that might cause you a little discomfort, but they're going to change your perspective, and that's incredibly valuable. We need that in this world, and uh, so it, the realist is what I have kind of come up with as a way to push back against the difficulties in distribution that independent filmmakers are facing, and I think we've got a shot to make a real impact.
Right. You have a huge shot to make an impact because it's such a wide open, it's so it's there's like people screaming for this kind of content, and it's so important. I'm as I mentioned to you, I spent a chunk of the pandemic watching documentaries because I want to be educated. I want to learn about the world, and so I'm a documentary. I love documentaries.
Yeah.
I mentioned to you, I just watched the American Revolution. Ken Burns, and loved it. And I never knew that this chair. I'm going to get very dramatic now. This chair where I'm sitting here in Monmouth County was the epicenter of the American Revolution, because Monmouth County, where I am, was equidistant between Philly and New York. Everything had to come through here. So
Wow.
everything came through here, including one of the big battles, the Monmouth battlefield, uh, the Battle of Monmouth took place, right down the street. I mean, but anyway, that's the power of documentaries.
Yeah.
So, and I might not have introduced you as Michael Hussain. I might not have mentioned your name. And I also want to spell so people understand. The Realist is not Real, it's Reelist. The Realist, which is brilliant. It's a brilliant name. So
Thank you.
last year we talked about the waiting game and the ABA and stuff I never knew about, how amazing the ABA was. And now you've taken a major step, a leap, in you're developing your own streaming platform. So, did anything in particular change in you to embark on this?
Yeah, I would say it did. The waiting game is my own sort of personal journey, right? So it was a film that I spent 3 years making, and it was one that I, the traditional route which I was following was that you get some play at film festivals, see how audiences respond to your film, because sometimes you didn't hit the mark, and it's a film that just doesn't connect no matter how hard you try. The waiting game was different. The waiting game was one that really did connect with audiences in a very big way. So every place that we screened it, it won awards. It was fortunate enough to win the best documentary film at Garden State, and it won in Indianapolis. It won in Phoenix, and so it just was. And then we did a lot of community screenings as well. So it was, and we would pack houses at theaters and lots of different places where we played it at a minor league baseball park in Louisville, because Louisville had a big ABA basketball team, and it really resonated with people. And but even though it was clearly there was an audience connection to it, the world of streaming. You mentioned, I think that I had done a lot of work with ESPN, and I've done work with non-sports things too, the History Channel and VH1, et cetera. And so in that the landscape of, say, 10, 12 years ago, you might have had 60, 70 cable outlets that you could find a path to go from festival to audience response to finding a home for it. That was your distribution path. And now you're down to really handful, 6 major streamers. Of those, most of them are really tech companies. They're not. They are in the business of displaying the art form, but it's really not their core. Their core is tech, and so what algorithms and those sorts of companies won't do is take a lot of risk. So the types of documentaries that you're going to wind up being fed in an algorithmic environment are ones that are really safe and easy to promote. So you're going to get true crime, you're going to get celebrity-driven content, and maybe something outlandish, a cult or something like that. And that's about it. Very rare would something else pop in there. And and I know enough that the celebrity driven pieces where it's wonderful that you think you're getting access into the celebrities world. They have say over the end product at the end. So while you might have talented filmmakers in there, trying to create a documentary about whoever your celebrity of the day might be, they do not have editorial control. And so independent filmmaking, you retain that. It's a big part of what separates a studio-driven film from an independent. We spend a lot of time as independent filmmakers with our subjects. So, your first 2 or 3 days of filming with somebody, you're kind of getting the facade. It's the surface. People are aware there's a camera. Day 15 with somebody, you're starting to get the real person. And so there's that's hard work. It's expensive, and but it's really, really important if you want to reveal the essence of somebody or something. And so independent documentary is incredibly valuable and incredibly different. And so the waiting game was one that it looked at the history and impact of the ABA as a basketball league, but it also looked at the players of the ABA once it combined forces with the NBA. The players were really left behind in terms of the respect for what they had brought to the game and also financially. And so it was not the waiting game didn't show the NBA at its finest hour, and so you start looking at why can't this find distribution when audiences are responding to it? Well, it's the NBA's big business, and good for them, and not a problem, but finding a home on somebody who either is an NBA partner or wants to be an NBA partner, that's going to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I realized in the journey of not finding distribution for the waiting game and is that there were a lot of films that I would see at film festivals that were very good, right? So not every film that at a film festival is great, but at every film festival there are several great films. And so what I was finding is that these great films that I had seen at festivals couldn't find them, just like the waiting game. Like audiences would like to refer friends, like I saw this cool film, you would love it. I don't know where to tell you to find it. And so we just realized that there was a gap that opened up between festivals and distribution. There's this it's a gap. I don't know how else to describe it. And so we started to think about, this is my brother and I, how could we impact that? And what we initially kind of came up with was the idea of like the wine of the month club that people used to get. You'd be delivered a bottle of wine that was well regarded by people who regard wine, and you would taste it. You would learn something about the grapes that made it. You would learn something about the winemaker, the craftsperson, and it was an interesting experience. And then you might not like the wine, you might love it, but you're going to learn something. To your point, and so we started thinking about a documentary of the month club, and we've since made it a documentary of the week club, and it is the Reelist Indie Film Club. What we're doing is pretty straightforward, which is one film a week, but it is highlighted. We will market it heavily to our subscriber base. It streams to you, so you don't have to watch it on your laptop. It'll come on your Apple TV or your Roku or whatever, Google TV. However you get your stuff through your streaming, there's an app there for the Reelist Indie Film Club, and so we wanted to make sure it's a good viewing experience, and you don't just have to watch it on your laptop all day. And then each film will have a live virtual Q&A with the filmmaker. So we want to not only show you a really great film, like one that played well at film festivals and that audiences responded to, like I just said, but then also understand that there's an artist behind this. And those artists it's an important thing to us to really celebrate them. And also, for an audience, when you see a really good film, you generally want to dive deeper at the end. You want to ask some questions. Well, here's your chance. That it's a really fun part of the film festival experience to be able to do that. And so we're creating that here in a streaming platform. And one of the things that I've seen, I've been doing this for a while. I have a lot of friends or colleagues that are just talking about how difficult it is to distribute. And what distribution equals is dollars, basically. So no matter how passionate you may be about what you're trying to create, and there are a lot of really passionate people in this world, increasingly I'm seeing people leave the business. And that's really hard to stomach. And so really talented people just can't make it work. And so The other thing that my brother and I talked about that we wanted to do was to make sure that filmmakers got paid. So we committed immediately to we're going to pay filmmakers up front.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
that's important because there are ways to distribute your film where you kind of set up a per click kind of basis. And you think that, oh, well, I'm going to be on the Amazon's platform, but I didn't get any money up front, and then I'm waiting on the per click basis because it's Amazon. It's going to be so big, it's going to work out great. More often than not, it does not work out great. It's just the it's pennies on your on the purchase, and it takes so many clicks to actually equal anything that it's just a lot of filmmakers have been very disappointed with how they've done. So we committed to paying them up front. Like if
Wow.
you come on our platform, we are going to pay you. You know what you're getting, and it's a decent chunk of money. And then we thought about, well, how could we amplify that? So we've got really good films that we've curated. We have a community of subscribers that really love this stuff. That's why they're there. They want to see really good films, and then we wanted to sort of, and they're already, and they know that their part of their subscription fee is paying these filmmakers, right? That's how we're able to do it. Uh, is how else? How could we up that? And so we created what happens in film festivals is an audience choice award essentially, and so ours is a creators grant, and roughly 4 times a year our audience will vote on the films that they've seen, and they will direct a grant to the winning filmmakers. And it's significant money. So if you win that grant in a quarter, is $10,000. So our audience has sent $10,000 to a filmmaker
Wow.
to be able to go out and make their next film. So the idea is a virtuous circle, right? Really, uh, you come to see good films, you subscribe, your subscription dollars and your votes pay to keep filmmakers going so they can go make their next film. And hopefully that next film shows up on the Reelist as well.
I I know the waiting game challenged the establishment
They
a
do.
bit, and I thought it was healthy, and I thought it was wonderful, and for somebody who's a lover of basketball, I just never and nobody, I don't think anybody today who loves the NBA, as the NBA has exploded, as is the ABA. I'm sorry, the WNBA has exploded
Yeah.
truly beyond, a lot of that growth is born out of the Big Ten, of course, Iowa and Caitlin.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, but I mean, the ABA, that was 3-point shot came from that. That changed this game forever and ever. So much came out of that. But you challenge the establishment, and the realist is a bit of that energy of establishing and challenging, isn't it?
I think all of independent film is a challenge to the
Yeah,
establishment, right? I think that's the spirit of this thing. I think if you're the type of person who will drive an extra mile to buy local because you think it's important, um, you probably will like something like The Realist. Good filmmakers do challenge the establishment, just like the ABA did with the NBA. Like they were chronically underfunded. Sound familiar? But they had a better product. They were exciting. They were fun, and they created that league ended in '76, and its legacy is still here. You turn on an NBA game today, you're watching ABA basketball. You're not
Sure,
really watching the NBA's own history.
sure.
So independent film, we've got films on the Realist now. There's one called, An Honest Liar, about a magician who uh, uh, understood all the tricks of the trade, His name was the Amazing Randy, and then he realized that there were these frauds, these televangelists and others who were taking advantage of people by basically using the same principles of deception that works in magic. So he started exposing them. Like he was somebody who stepped in and said, "This is BS, and let me show you how." And so that's an example of a just a great story that you aren't going to get anywhere else. We've got gosh, lots of there's a film called The Reverend, which happens. The guy named Vince Anderson who thought he wanted to go to divinity school. He did go to divinity school. He kind of drank himself out, and then was trying to sort of figure out what were his passions, and how could he combine them and chart a path forward. And what he realized is he was great at music, and he really wanted to help people in a spiritual way. The traditional ways to push that passion weren't working for him. So he has had a residency in a Brooklyn bar for the last 20 plus years. And where every Monday night he goes in and he plays sets of his own music. It's this gospel rock kind of very energized thing. And it is a spiritual experience for the people in that bar every Monday.
Wow.
And it's where else are you going to meet a guy like Vince Anderson,
Wow.
except through independent film? It's there are just so many amazing stories. There's a New Jersey-based story, Jess Zilla, which was a huge festival favorite. Um, a film about when you meet Jessalyn Silva. She's about 8 years old. She goes to the gym every day with her dad because they have just a very special relationship. And she realizes at the gym she wants to try boxing. And not only does she try it, she's really good at it. And she is on her way towards a junior Olympic berth. And these filmmakers followed her for 5 years. And she, it's not only a girl in a combat sport story, which is how it started out, but also it's a father-daughter story. It's a really powerful father-daughter story. And um, it was funny. I was having a conversation, that those question and answers that we were talking about with the filmmakers. She said, we still debate whether this is Jessalyn's film, the boxer, or whether it's Pedro, her dad's film. We don't really know because, who has the most change throughout the film. And I don't want to give away the ending, but, it's a great film. It is one that will stick with you like a great film does, for days afterwards. You'll be thinking about it.
So, in my reading, uh, you've said some of the best documentaries never get seen. Why is that happening?
It's a shame. I mean, that's that gap that I was talking about. Is that um, you know the the Reverend is not easy to promote. People don't know who Vince Anderson is. They should, but they don't. And so, the effort it would take to promote within the streaming world this really unique, amazing guy who is, again, just a character that you cannot make up. Um, it's if you were casting it as a film, you would cast Jack Black as Vince Anderson. It gives you an idea of sort of
Cool.
the big bold energy that he brings.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and it's so the waiting game. People. Interestingly, with the waiting game is that there did wind up being a series on the ABA on Amazon Prime, and it didn't take a look. It told the story nicely, the history of what the ABA is, but it didn't touch any of the tough stuff that the waiting game did. Didn't touch on players who struggled afterwards. Who it that's just the way it is, and that there were players left out. So one of the it's harder. Things that are harder to promote aren't going to show up on your streaming service, and unfortunately, I mean, we all get the things on our large streaming platforms. Would you like more like this? right? Like, no, I don't want more like this. I actually want different.
Hmm.
And the problem is that, people may not know that there's more out there. To just think that, oh, these are the documentaries that are out there right now. And it's not even scratching the surface. There are tons more great films out there that people should see. We're going to program 52 of them. And even beyond that, there's lots more.
Wow. Um, yes, you're challenging major streaming platforms, which I think should love you because they should absolutely love you. You're not a threat. Uh, um, what would you say they're doing wrong? Um,
I think it's exactly what that algorithmic question is asking you. More of the same. It's
or the
if you
same.
look at the documentaries that you're being fed, they're stale. If you watch five of those things, you watch them all. It's the same beats, the same rhythms, the same risks taken or not taken, and it's just not terribly innovative. I think each of the films that you're going to find on the Realist take some real risks because the filmmakers had to take risks to make them, let alone how they let the story out. So it's if you appreciate not only the risks that the people on camera are taking, um, but that the people behind the camera had to take to bring it to you. I think that's what people really like to support within like a film festival or other or an art house. Understanding that there are people out there sort of pushing the creative edge, and and there's just a real honesty I think within independent film that again when there's artist approval of editorial you just don't get. And that kind of contributes to the stale feeling of, if you've watched, honestly, if you've watched a music doc on, if you watch two music documentaries on the major streaming services, you have seen them all. There will be
Definitely.
the rise from nothing. There will be the challenge of a bad AR or some contract that didn't go right. There's the drugs and alcohol or sexual awakening, and then there's the rebirth. And there's your
Nothing
film.
creative. Nothing creative.
No,
Nothing innovative. It's the same. It's the same spoon-fed stuff.
yeah.
Um,
And
yep.
spoon fed that's a great phrase. It's one that we have used a lot in trying
Yeah.
to develop what is our perspective on the world. And our perspective is not spoon fed. Like if you're tired of spoon fed, come on over.
So and you've said it a few times. It's such it's like the crying game, quoting an old movie. It's like
Yeah.
the crying game. We're letting algorithms decide what we watch, and AI ain't going to make it any easier or better. It's just going to contribute. Everything is an algorithm. I'm a writer, and everything I do now, I'm being coached. Everything is the algorithm. Everything is metadata. Everything is keywords.
Mhm.
Every little thing I do has to be, and and uh, and it's a shame, you know.
It is a shame, and I think it is leading to a certain numbing of what we expect and just our life experience. And I get efficiency and that part can be helpful, but with the films that we're putting on the Realist, I watch every single one of them. These are as literally handpicked as you can be when you're bringing films to people. So we want to see things that are bold. We want to see things that challenge us, and uh, and so not every film will be for everybody,
Sure.
but the art form is incredibly important to protect. And so here's a chance for people to stream with a purpose, to sort of say, yeah, I believe in independent film. I also know I won't love every film. I don't love every movie I see. But it's the idea that my streaming dollars aren't just going to feed a tech company. They're actually going to feed artists, people who made the thing that I'm about to watch. That I think is a critical difference. I don't know of anybody that's really doing that in the way that we're trying to do it. and then to be able to have a conversation, a community conversation about the films. Like when we do our live Q&As, there are these, streaming comments and questions that people are talking about, um, that's just really fun. Like that's a really energized way to sort of support the filmmakers and ask questions that you're curious about, whether it's about the movie itself or about the filmmaking process. And then, to be able, again, as a part of this community, which is nothing more than being a subscriber, um, to get to vote and say, I want even more money to go to this one film.
Yeah,
This
that's
film
great.
really meant something to me. And so this filmmaker, I want to see what they make next.
That's so great to be able to do that, to have an effect. What do you see, or what does somebody like you see that an algorithm doesn't see in a project?
Um,
Is it
it
humanity?
what's that?
Is it humanity?
I definitely it's humanity. Um, I, one of the things that somebody pointed out to me once, who watched the waiting game, during a question and answer period, so, it pointed to a scene where things got quiet. Like it was just watching somebody while they were processing something. And it lasted for 15, 20 seconds. And you could kind of see their eyes. You could see the guy's ear getting red as he was thinking. These are very subtle things, but you know, I can tell you from having created a bunch of films for, the large cable networks, even, um, there is you got to pace it. If you don't, that's going to be a note you're going to get from the network. Pace it up, because if somebody tunes in right there while, Mr. Guy is having his ear turn red, well, that's not exciting enough, and they could switch to the next channel. Fair enough. I'm sure they got research that proves that. But for an independent film, um, uh, you built a character here. You know that character is going through something, and you just let them. You don't spoon feed it. You don't say, "Oh, he's getting nervous. Now what?" There's not a piece of narration that says that. Um, it's the film plays out as life plays out in many ways. I think um, I think a lot of what I see, um, that I hope I see anyway, are the questions being asked that are a little tougher, a little more direct, a little more honest than you might see otherwise. A lot of times the questions are, that you see in the algorithmic films are sort of set up softballs to allow the person to, give an answer that, um, it's just unchallenged. And sometimes you do have to challenge. You got to follow up with, you know, in the waiting game. One of the key scenes is, after the NBA has dragged its feet for years on something, they do a little something. It's not enough, but they do a little something. And the question that had to go to the NBA was, what took you so long? Right? That is not a type of question that you're going to get in let me just say, a more standard documentary.
I like that. By the way, if you see me writing, it's because I am writing.
Okay,
All
you are
right.
not AI. You're actually writing.
I'm actually writing. I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes. I may be one of the only interviewers in American history who take notes while he's interviewing.
But
Uh,
this is it. Here's me right here. Right.
there you go. Well, then we're so much alike.
Yes.
You may have touched on this this next question. You did, but it makes no difference, because to go over things, as I told you, working for a billionaire, you got to repeat things 10 times,
Yeah.
and that's important. And the other thing I wanted to say is I spent a couple of weeks ago, I spent 10 days interviewing 35 filmmakers, actors, actresses, screenwriters, composers. The same thing how you and I met a year ago.
Yeah.
And if somebody came over to me and said, what are your takeaways from meeting 35 creative, wonderful, amazing people? And I said, yeah, I actually have two takeaways because this came up invariably in every conversation I had over the 10 days. Two things. Two words, actually. Two words. Two words. One word was story, and I'll repeat it. Story, story, story. And the other word is money, money, money. That was universal. So taking that, uh, um, you're paying filmmakers upfront, brilliant. That's a big deal. So why did you kind of uh, choose that model? And the second part of the question, the system that we have now is kind of broken for independent filmmakers. I see it all the time. I hang around such amazing, brilliant, like yourself, amazing, brilliant people, and who could be making the most unbelievable things, could be a gift for us as a species, um, uh, and not because money. And so you're addressing that.
Yes, and I think, if you were to visit a lot of, I mean, those are very two astute takeaways, and I think Universal, well beyond just the Garden State Film Festival, is a great festival, but you could go to any festival across the country and have a series of meaningful conversations with the creators, and they would tell you the same thing. So story is critical. When we set out to make this platform, um, in some ways we were mirroring, what an independent filmmaker goes through. It's a passion thing. It's a, you when you find a story as an independent filmmaker, you cannot let it go. And so sometimes people will, spend themselves into oblivion because they are so passionate about the story that they are telling and feel it is so important that people know about what the story is that they have found. And that generally is a hallmark of what will be inside of a great film. You'll feel the passion, and that's part of what people respond to in a great independent film. So we're trying to decide, what do we lead with? Do we lead with that we want to help filmmakers, or do we lead with there are going to be great stories here? And I think, if you're just a consumer, I want my good stories. That's what that's what I'm paying for. I'm gonna pay you some money. You bring me some really great stories. Okay, great. We will do that. That's promise one, but not far behind it. Promise 1A, if you will, is we have to help these filmmakers, or all these great stories are going to stop coming. In fact, there's a fear within, the film festival world that the the downstream 3-4 years from now, as people who are the creators are starting to change careers and drop out, um, that there's going to be a real drop off in the quality of the films. That's a fear. And so, how do we try and step in and help that? Well, we're doing what we can in terms of, licensing the films, paying up front. Again, we don't want filmmakers to just wonder. And I think people take advantage of independent filmmakers because they're so passionate. And they'll say, don't worry, it's going to be great. There's, per clicks you're going to be so happy. And the proof is not that. The proof is that a lot of filmmakers are unhappy and struggling. And so, this is a way to be just very direct about it and say, you know, here's the money that you can count on. And and then really in between that is the community. This community, when you're a subscriber to the Realist, we're asking you to be more than a passive subscriber. Don't just watch.
Yeah.
We really want you to be a supporter of independent film, which you already are, right? By putting down your credit card and becoming a subscriber. And by the way, it's not any more expensive than anything else that you would subscribe to. It's $8 a month if you subscribe for the year. It's roughly $11 a month if you subscribe by the month. And the first 2 months are free, just so you can come and try it. But it's again, we want to be able to grow our subscriber base so that we have even more money to pay. We will up the fees that we pay for filmmakers once we reach a certain level of subscribers. Like we're never going to stop paying filmmakers. That's part of our commitment.
So nice.
Um,
It's so nice. You know,
so
it just is. It's such a breath of fresh air with everything
I think
going
it's
on.
part of. I'm a filmmaker. Like I'm
Mhm.
not. I think a filmmaker making this for other filmmakers in some ways, and I want audiences to appreciate as much as possible, as widely as I can spread the message. This is worth your time, and it's worth preserving an art form that kind of does make a real difference.
So, well, you kind of touch on it. What defines a realist film? You know, it's more raw, it's more honest, it's more risky. It's a combination of all those
Yeah,
ingredients.
yeah. It's like anything. I think that is an art form. Like the difference between a chain restaurant and a chef-driven one is significant. The flavors are a little more bold. Sometimes you won't like what they did with the truffles, but it's worth trying. It's you know you know art that hangs on the wall, photography. It's not one size fits all, and that's part of the beauty of it, right? Try, explore. Maybe you won't like most of the film, but 10% of it really got you, and you won't forget it. That's a win. I think this is the world that a lot of people really appreciate. They just don't know with independent film that they're missing a bunch of stuff because the algorithm's not feeding it to them. So if you try the Reelist, Independent Film Club, I think you're going to find a lot of things that you're surprised about. And almost all of us know a person or two who are the big film lovers. Like, oh, that's for Joe. Joe loves independent films, loves documentaries. This is a great way to gift them or refer them to it, and they're going to love it.
I um I wrote I have a newsletter I told you about on LinkedIn. I'm promoting my newsletter on LinkedIn. It's really took off beyond what I would have ever imagined. Couple of actors signed on to that.
Yeah,
One of the I've only done four now, and one of the topics I did was bold. To that being bold in life, and I'm I'm a roundabout way getting to you. It's about life is about being bold. I talk about when I was studying pharmacy and I had a 12-week experiment to make aspirin. And when I was going to school and before I went to Rutgers, I went to the University of Toledo, 12-week experiment to make aspirin. Anyway, the next to the last week, I burned everything off. In other words, you got to shake and rattle and roll and do all that stuff, and you pour and next to the last week, it's spring semester. I wasn't paying attention. I burnt everything off. I heated it too much. I had nothing to hand in, and this is 1965, at the beginning of Vietnam, and the dean said every year there's always a wise guy who hands in bare aspirin and cuts lab for 12 weeks and we assay every sample. And if you hand in bare aspirin, you're getting kicked out of school, and you're going to wind up in the army. Have a nice life. And anyway, it's now I have nothing to hand in. Nothing to hand in. I went to all my friends and fraternity brothers. Hey, if everybody gives me a little bit, just a little bit, I'll have enough to hand in, and I won't have to go to summer school. So the real meaning of fraternalism, uh, um, nobody gave me nothing. So I had nothing to hand in. And it's now the last day of class. You have to hand in your samples and you have to clean your glassware, your beakers, your test tubes. And in front of every station was a can of Ajax. And so I picked up the Ajax, put it in, and I'm pouring it, and I'm saying, "Oh wow, it looks just like Ashman. It's white, it's flocculent, it's fluffy." The dean never said don't hand in Ajax. He just said don't hand in Bayer Aspirin. So I was bold. I was bold, and I handed in Ajax, prepared if I'm confronted. And I was bold, and I got an A in lab because I filled up the jar to the top. So taking that theme, Michael, about being bold, was there a fear in launching Realist?
I would say no. What is the old I think it's Shakespeare, this fortune favors the bold. It's
I'm not a Shakespeare guy.
I'm not either, but I've heard that line. I think I stole the hearing it from Anthony Hopkins. Uh, but So at least there's a film reference there. So uh, no, I think I just really believe in this. I here's what I know is if we are gonna be bold in terms of bringing films, and we're in our my passion, and we have a small team of folks who are really passionate about trying to get this right. And with all that, like burning off the aspirin, we're going to get some stuff wrong, and we're going to be small and nimble, and we're going to adjust quickly, and we're going to try and just do the best we can. When you're making independent films, you really have to be adaptable. No matter how much you plan in what the story is going to be, it always changes, and so you just have to be flexible, and hopefully smart, a little bit smart, but really just the passion behind independent film and helping filmmakers, and knowing that people love these stories. Each one of these stories has already played well in front of audiences. It just didn't get a streaming deal, and that's BS to
Yeah,
me. And
yeah.
so we got a chance to change that, and the audience has a chance to change that by coming around. So as one of our filmmakers put it in the last Q&A we did, everybody who buys a subscription to the Realist or buys a movie ticket or a ticket to the theater, you're a patron of the arts. That means you're helping support the artists, and so we're asking for that support, and I think it's going to be well worth um, the while of those who subscribe. I think everybody's gonna really enjoy meeting these artists, and that's part of the fun of this. Is not we're just gonna passively throw something up. We're gonna bring you the artists, go talk with them, interact.
Um, what keeps you going, and what would success look like in 3 to 5 years?
In 3 to 5 years, success would look like a subscriber base that's not enormous. I mean, I don't think these are they're crazy numbers that we need to hit, but a steady stream of success. And I think each film kind of comes with a little bit of its own audience, right? So people who have seen The Waiting Game support it generally. People who have seen Honest Liar or some of The Reverend, they already know that they like it. They will be willing to support it again, and so you try and have a few of those come on as members of the Realist. But subscriber base continues to grow. We'll hit a break even point, and then we'll hit a beyond break even point. And if we really eclipse the break even point, which I actually think we can do, then we can start to do a lot more with the money, basically, right? So, whereas at a tech platform, we're just going to say, "Oh, great, let's fill the pockets with what we're doing." That's not what we're about.
Yeah.
So we're going to up. We'll then up what we pay for the initial licensing fee. We'll up what we can do with creative grants to get filmmakers making even more films. Maybe we could do something for students, and fund a film there.
Yeah.
Lots of opportunities, but first things first. Let's get really good films on. This is our fundamentals, right? Our blocking and tackling is program really good films, have the filmmakers come in really engaged and excited to talk with the community, and get people paid so that they're not dropping out of the industry, and then we're all going to grow together. This is really, one of the kind of taglines that we're playing around with is being independent together. So, we need an audience, we need filmmakers, we need people who commonly, have some common beliefs, that are willing to kind of work together, and everybody will be better.
Nicely said. Um, in reading, because I do my due diligence as a journalist.
Mhm.
You talked about when you were interviewed, you talked about Indiana. You're a Hoosier, by the way. We talked about that before we went on air. We talked about Indiana football.
Yeah.
I kept slapping my face 12 times this year because we talked about that. Every game, I'm thinking, oh, they're going to lose. They're going to lose. Well, they
Yeah.
didn't. They didn't, and I can't even imagine how you feel being an alum. Uh,
Yes.
See that joy, that thrill that so few get to experience. It's a dream come true.
Yes, it
Really.
was, and very, very hard
You were
to
there with
put
Bobby
into.
Knight. Were you there when
I
Bobby
was
Knight?
there with Bobby Knight. In fact, my senior year was the last national championship in basketball.
Wow.
Uh, so that was a long time ago, and so football, we were a doormat for decades, and so I think, collectively the worst collective record in college football
Yes,
history.
correct.
And then we literally went from worst to first, and so there's never quite been a story like that, I don't think, in college sports. And so
Nope.
yeah, it was a lovely, lovely run, very exciting.
Truly, truly. And when you're at Indiana, you said I remember reading your professors let you experiment,
Yes.
which is kind of interesting. Uh, and how important was that freedom that they instilled on you back then in setting a path in your life?
Huge. I don't think there's a way to overstate it. It was, you were given these. They gave you the basics. They gave you and they gave you the tools, right? They gave you cameras and microphones and things that you could play around with. Um, and then basically, maybe I maybe I went into the lab a few times after hours that you weren't supposed to, but they let you in. You could go play. I took cameras out. I made films. I did stuff, and not all of it was good, I promise you. But that's how you learn. And so, I'd had really, it was really fortunate to have a lot of different teachers, not only in college, but also even in high school, that would allow you to take some risks and do things like that. And I think that's carried over into my professional career. I don't like the super safe path, um, because I think that the risks don't always pay off. They definitely don't. But when they do, um, you got something unique, and that's really special. So hopefully over time I've learned to be, you know, um, take the proper risks, but you never quite know. And I don't see this is a risk, of course, the realist, but it could go flat. But I think I just believe in the collective a lot, and each time we bring on a new film, the collective gets bigger. Right? There's new filmmakers, new
Sure,
energy, new ideas, new
sure.
believers. Each time subscribers come in, we get a little bigger, a little better. New questions will come in for questions and answers. Each subscriber's dollars are fuel for independent films getting made. So I just think that this idea of working together, and building a larger collective, that's how you fight back against tech companies and algorithms, right? You have to be together, and so that's our shot. We're taking it.
Great. Uh, there's a million more questions, but not because you've covered so much. One final thing, it's kind of a philosophical thing. Uh, um, so if somebody who's listening to this has a story, like inside them, but they don't have the platform Um, what would you tell them? Because you're doing something here that's so extraordinary and it's deep. By the way, this stuff is deep. The energy, I'm a little creative myself, and I know the pools of energy I have to dig into to create, to sit in a chair for 5 years to write something.
Yeah.
Uh, so what would you tell someone? Um,
Well, I mean, what you're talking about is risk at some level. Like, it's scary, but it's also fulfilling. So when you publish your books and you get Kirkus reviews and things, you're gonna that's that's amazing. And you more importantly than even the reviews, every now and then I'm sure you get a reader who says this meant something to me, right? This impacted me. What's better than that than human connection? So I think for those who have an idea but don't quite know what to do with it, believe in the spirit of human connection and at least try and jot it out. If you're not a writer, try and talk it out into a voice memo, and the translation software is at this point pretty good. It'll write it for you as you speak it.
yeah,
But communicate it. Holding it inside is never going anywhere. And so, maybe then you can find a partner that can help fulfill what you hope that your story can be. A lot of times it does take a partner. I mean, films are not made with just a director. If you don't have a really good director of photography, you don't have a really good editor, um, your film is not going to go where you would like it to go. It's always a collaboration. And so this idea of the sort of iconic film director or author or anything else, there's always an editor. There's always somebody who is helping shape and challenge the artist, right? The artist may be challenging convention, but there's always somebody that's also going to then push back against the artist and say, "Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this piece you think is great? It doesn't connect with me. Make it better." My wife is the best editor that I have. Right? I'll run things by her, and I'm sure that I've come up with something genius. And she'll, eh, you know, what about, I've heard that before. I think you could make it better. And so everybody needs collaboration. And so I think don't be afraid of it.
great, wonderful. Hey, this was great as it was last year. What you're doing, I'm such a fan of creative, independent. Listen, I'm an indie author. There's no agents, there's no publishers. Everything is indie, indie, indie. It's in my blood. I know indie, and I feel for indie, and it's a part of my molecular structure, being an independent. So what you're doing is means a lot to me, and that's why we're here. And I'm saying come back, and we can do panels and talk, and we can bring filmmakers here. I mean, listen,
Yeah.
I'm a retired guy. I sit in this. I don't have my violin out now. I'm a retired guy, and I sit in this chair 12 hours a day. But I welcome all this stuff, especially with the world of indie and filmmakers. I love film, changed my life. So what you're doing, I love, love, love. I love documentaries, and so do come back. And I'm so glad we reconnected, and I'm so glad I had a chance to congratulate you on IU.
Yes. Well, thank you for all of it. Thank you for
Yes.
taking the time to talk with me and opening up your platform. And I guess I have a picture of retired that doesn't look anything like working 12 hours a day. So
Oh,
I don't see you as retired. I see you as
uh,
working.
oh, it's wonderful. You know what? By the way, I believe, I read dozens of articles literally a day on longevity. And there's something to it. The exercise. Yeah, genetics is 10, 15, 20% tops, but it's lifestyle, it's exercise, it's diet, supplements, the whole package. Stress and hydrate. I mean, I could and I'm such a believer in that because I live it.
Mhm.
And I live it, and I started all this stuff in 1969 when I was studying pharmacology. I don't want to age. traditionally. I didn't like aging, so I'm not. And maybe I'm lucky. I don't know.
And usually in every one of those articles that I've ever read, social connection is a huge part of it as
You
well.
bet.
And so
Yes,
here we are.
correct. Social connection, purpose. These are words, but wow, are they powerful, powerful stuff. So this is great. I'm going to stop recording, come back. Uh, you did come back. You did.
That's right. Come
Yep,
back anytime. Thank you
you
for
did
having
come
me.
back. And thank you, Michael. To be continued. Don't leave. I'm just going to stop recording.